So one of the questions I get quite often has to deal with, well, the Social Security is set to essentially be unfunded by the end of the next decade, and what is my plan to ensure that program continues? Well, it's a good question, and it's one of those things that I've done a lot of thinking on this particular issue. And for me, there's two ways that I look at this particular issue. First, I look at the constitutionality and the legality of the system. I don't believe that Social Security was ever a legal or constitutional system. Article 1, Section 8 makes no mention of a federal pension system for 325 million Americans. And it's very clear in any plain reading of the Constitution and the constitutional conventions, all that was said in those, and all of the writings surrounding Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers and so on and so forth. When you read the actual documents, the founding documents of our country, it makes a pretty clear case that Social Security was never something that was envisioned by our founders, and by the reading of the Constitution, it's just simply not legal. Now, I am not looking to take away anyone's Social Security, so I want everybody at home who just heard this statement I just made, who might have their anxiety levels rise from that statement, please know I'm not looking to actually defund the system or get rid of it. The simple reason for me bringing that up is that if we want to keep the system, we need to make it legal, and we need to make it legal by amending the Constitution. Now, beyond that, how do we make sure that this system continues down the road, decades or centuries into the future? Right now, the population is not growing fast enough to keep up with the number of people drawing from the system. So how do we fix that problem? Traditionally, what most people would say is, well, we have to tweak the formula, raise the retirement age, and, raise the amount that you pay in, so on and so forth. That might still be part of the valid solution to an extent. But I believe there's a way that we can reduce the overall liability of the Social Security system, the amount that the system will owe in the future, essentially, by allowing Americans choice. Our country was founded on the ideals of personal liberty, and the idea is that that breaks down into essentially personal choice. You should have a choice as to what happens with your money. Now, me personally, I don't like the idea of the government taking your money away without your consent, so to speak, especially when it's being said that it's for your own well-being. So my suggestion is this. We attack the Social Security funding issue from 3 different avenues and try and reduce that overall unfunded liability in the future by allowing Americans the choice to either opt out, remain in the program the same way they've always been in the program, essentially pay in and receive benefits, or number 3, allow Americans to essentially invest that money using a federal Scottrade-like trading system. Essentially allow Americans to invest that money however they see fit. So essentially they pay into the Social Security system the way they always have, but now we will create an account that has kept track of all of your Social Security payments, your overall balance with the federal government essentially, and we allow you the opportunity to invest that in the private market. If you want to buy shares of Apple, buy shares of Apple. If you want to invest that money into some sort of a structured 401k or something of that nature, well, you can do that. And the idea with that third option is that we are giving that money the opportunity to grow. Essentially, the pot of money grows to help out that larger liability that we're going to have in the future. Now, that's not a short-term solution. It will take money or take time for that money to grow. It will take time for people to feel comfortable enough to migrate into that option. So that doesn't necessarily cover our issues with the unfunded liabilities in the short term. Now, that's where the opting out kind of comes in. We need to allow Americans the opportunity to opt out of the program if they don't want to be a part of it. Essentially stop paying into it, pay them back the money that they've paid into the system, and allow them to do with that money whatever they want. Now, the reason this is part of the solution is it overall reduces the liability of the Social Security system. There's going to be fewer people in the future drawing from the program. And the reason that's a good thing is because in the short term, in order to fund these unfunded liabilities, we can sell off federal assets. We have something like $200 trillion in federal assets that we could use to cover the shortfalls until that money starts to grow from the private option that Americans would essentially use. So, short term, we might also have to adjust the formula a little bit. But the hope is that with fewer people going into the system overall, smaller liability in the end, allowing the pot of money to grow at a faster rate than Social Security would grow that money, by allowing them to direct their investment, we can essentially long-term fix the problem and use federal assets and maybe a little tweaking of the formula to kind of fund in the short term. I like this option. I like this idea because it's also more in line with the ideals of America, the ideas of freedom, the ideals of personal liberty, the idea that you have the right to choose what you do with your own money. That's essentially what this does, as well as fund the program down the road. So, number one, we need to make the program constitutional and legal. I wholeheartedly believe if this is really what the American people want and they want to keep Social Security, well then let's amend the Constitution and let's use this suggestion that I have here and put that into the amendment. Make sure that Americans will always have a choice to either opt in or use that money however they see fit. So I hope that answers the question. I hope it clarifies my stance on this. For some people, this might seem extreme. To me, it doesn't. This seems fairly reasonable and, like I said, in line with the American tradition. But I can see why this might seem like an extreme step. The thing that needs to be mentioned, though, is that we've been kicking the can down the road for so long that a lot of our problems are so monumental that they require some pretty extreme solutions. There's no small tweaks that we're going to be able to do for $21 trillion in overall debt to get us out of that hole. There are some extreme solutions that are going to have to be presented in the short term to right the ship long term. We're going to have to eat some, things are going to have to be a little uncomfortable, so to speak, to kind of get us out of the holes that we've dug for ourselves. So, like I said, for me, this isn't an extreme solution. I understand if you think it is, but we also have to look at the reality of the system. It's simply not going to exist the way we continue, or if we continue along the same path we have for, well, the last however many years, however many decades. So, until next time, I'll catch you guys later.